afternoon, everybody. We are from Ithaca College. My name is Margaret Chan. I'm a senior music ed major. I play cello.
I'm Catherine. I'm a sophomore music ed major. I play violin.
Hi, I'm Charlie. I'm a senior music education major. I play cello. I'm looking for a job.
Hi, I'm Anna. I'm a senior music ed major and I play violin.
I'm Julia, senior music ed major. I also play violin.
All right, so today we are going to be talking about the effectiveness of the Ithaca College junior student teaching model. So here is some things that we're going to be getting into, the purpose of our research study, as well as our three main questions related to our pre-service teaching model, our methods, and what we discovered, as well as what we learned and our future plans for research. All right, so what is Ithaca College's junior student teaching model? At Ithaca College, we have two formal teaching placements, one full year in your junior year, as well as your senior student teaching placement. String area junior student teachers work at a string lab project called Strings Off and Running, also known as SOAR for short. It's run by Julie Carr, who has 47 years of teaching experience, and fun fact, also won the 2017 String Project of the Year. While there are 40 colleges in the United States with a string lab program, there are a handful who offer off-campus opportunities in an authentic classroom setting. So the purpose of our research, we wanted to look at the junior year music education practicum which Ithaca College prides itself on, which immerses students in an off-campus setting. We believe that the junior student teaching program is a huge asset to an educator's developing career. Our research is, we're hoping that it will encourage other collegiate programs to look into exploring a program similar to this. That being said, our research is looking at the overall effectiveness, and we are exploring in what ways people benefited from it, as well as how the effectiveness may be perceived depending on where they are in their teaching journey. So our three main research questions pertain to how Ithaca College's junior student teaching program affects the areas of lesson planning, self-efficacy, as well as communication and collaboration with respect to the number of years of teaching experience.
Great. So for our methods, first obviously we had to come up with this research question, and we decided that we wanted to survey current juniors and seniors involved in the junior student teaching program and senior student teaching program, as well as recent graduates going back to the class of 2013. So we came up with 19 people who we could survey, and we sent the survey to them. We created 20 questions. 4 were demographic questions to just get their name, what year they participated in JST, their instrument, and how many years of teaching experience they have. And we used these demographic questions and related them to the other 16 questions that we asked relating to the 3 categories that Margaret just mentioned. So like any survey, our survey had limitations. We identified 3 of them, and they were that the responses are self-reported, and the guided questions didn't provide much freedom in responses. We had a limited sample. Like I said, we just sent the survey to Ithaca College grads and students of Ithaca College, so we didn't get the outside population of people who didn't go through a JST program or people who went through a different JST program. And of the 19 people, 15 responded, but that's still a pretty small sample size. And next, we had to go through an IRB process, Institutional Review Board, because we're working with humans, and so we had to identify any risks to the participants, which there were none. They were just answering questions about their experience in the junior student teaching program. But we had to come up with a recruitment statement to send to them, a consent form for them to send back to us, and we had to submit a proposal to the Institutional Review Board, which got approved since we're standing here giving you this presentation. Then next, we did data analysis in small groups, and each group took one of the categories to focus on. And like I said earlier, we correlated our responses from the 3 categories to the demographic questions. And our results, I'm going to go over the demographics part of the results. So this is just there's a couple pie charts. The years participated in the junior student teaching program. We have a good spread of like 2 or 3 people from each year, so we were able to see trends among JST years and how they've changed. Years of teaching experience, we have 1 participant who has 5+ years of teaching, and 3 junior student teachers, 3 senior student teachers, and then 8 people who have been in the field for 1 to 4 years. And primary instrument, we had a pretty even split between upper strings and lower strings, which we'll talk about how we use our data later.
All right, so like you said, the first part of our research was based around lesson planning, and scary lesson plans. Up here is a sample lesson plan submitted by actually Margaret when she went through her junior student teaching. On the left is the lesson plan that she submitted the week before these lessons were supposed to take place. And on the right is a lesson plan that's been edited by Julie Carr, who goes through and reads all of these lesson plans over the weekend before we teach, so she can give us feedback. It might be kind of hard to see. It's in bold italics on the right, if you can see that. And so these lesson plans, as you can see, they're structured so that they have one central goal, right, that we're teaching. They're structured so that they give you opportunities to pace your lesson and determine how much time you want to spend on things, and it gives you an overall structure to your lesson. And then afterwards, after you teach these lessons, junior student teachers are expected to go back and reflect on each of these lessons so that they can sort of analyze what went well, what didn't go so well, so that they can modify them in the future. These lesson plans are also given to anyone who's observing the lesson, so they can give you feedback on how you do from an outside perspective during that lesson. So really, this program is built on a depth versus like a depth over breadth approach. It's focused very much on the delivery of the material. You get to work one-on-one with students directly. You respond to a very limited number of students. So, for example, when I taught, I had 3 students that I was teaching, as well as some other group work that I was doing. But strictly, when I was teaching my strings lessons, I was teaching 3 lessons one-on-one, and so it gives you that good opportunity to work directly and learn how to react to different learners, right? And the focus is really taken off of planning curriculum and more on delivering a curriculum that's already in place. So you learn really well how to, when given a goal already, you learn how to put that goal into action and apply it to when you're teaching, which is something that we do so that you don't overwhelm the teachers too much. You don't want them having to plan everything out and then also teach everything, because it's really a lot to put on somebody who is just in the field. So here's some quotes from people who went through the junior student teaching program. I particularly like the Mill quote. The question asked was how junior student teaching affected their knowledge of sequencing. And this person who's now a 3rd-year teacher responded, everything they learned about sequencing came from the junior student teaching program when they went through it. This is somebody who took all the methods classes, they did junior student teaching, they did senior student teaching, and now they've been teaching for now 2.5 years, right? They're in their 3rd year. And still, they credit the junior student teaching model from Julie Carr's SOAR project to be what taught them everything they know about sequencing, rather. So, like you saw, there are opportunities to pace yourself during the lessons. So, people who've gone through the program, which are the 5 graphs or the 5 sections that are further to the right, all had at least one person who felt extremely confident in their ability to pace during a lesson, while none of the current junior student teachers felt that way just yet. The idea is that over time, this is something that you learn, but the junior student teaching program really helps you and is sort of the first place where you start to develop that sense of how long can I spend on this? How long is it reasonable to expect a student to play a G major scale based on my experience with that student, And long-term curriculum planning, like I mentioned earlier, this is something that's a little bit more limited. So people who are not yet to their 2nd year of teaching really don't feel super confident in this just yet, because that's not really what the focus of junior student teaching was. We were delivering a curriculum that was already in place. Everything was already laid out for us. And so you can see that as time goes on, people start to reach that point where, like, by the time they hit their second, third year, they're like, okay, I sort of understand what I'm doing now. But in those first couple of years of teaching, it's sort of still something that's trial and error.
Alright, so next we'll be talking about self-efficacy. So based on the responses, we theorized that JST had a positive impact on overall teacher confidence. This was achieved by creating a safe and supportive environment and opportunities for the participants to grow and make mistakes in their learning. So overall, students felt more comfortable after their junior student teaching experience going into senior student teaching, as they had already taught before and had experience. JST was more successful in preparing to teach smaller groups and individual lessons than it was group rehearsals. The program is focused mostly on individual lessons, one-on-one lessons, so often people didn't realize that they lacked this experience until they got into their senior student teaching or into a job placement. Here's some quotes from participants. So now we'll be talking about time management. A lot of participants said that the ability to work with actual students made them improve in their time management skills, that it was difficult at first, but they grew over time. And there was a mixed response, as some didn't think they improved until senior student teaching. And then most positive responses came from participants who hadn't yet taught in a school. And here's some more quotes. And then here's a graph on the secondary instruments and overall confidence. So we have it laid out by what instrument the participants play is their primary instrument. And overall, the 4s and 5s are comfortable or somewhat comfortable with secondary instruments. And there were 2 participants that you can see they're lower on the scale, and they're both violinists. And we think that this is because at St. Mary, where we do junior student teaching, it's mostly violinist. So the violin players didn't have the opportunity to teach cello or bass as often.
And the final aspect of our research here is communication and collaboration. So the first thing that we see here is learning from peers. So many participants responded about how beneficial it was to collaborate with their peers during their year at SOAR. So they had this opportunity through group lesson planning, through discussions with their peers about their lesson plans, which was often able to happen during our car ride to our placement, which is about an hour and a half, like to and from. So group lessons create a space where student teachers can bounce ideas off of one another and use each other's strengths to create the best possible lesson plan. During their car ride, like we said, teachers can learn from each other's own experiences by discussing like what they just went through in their lessons that they taught, and coming to conclusions and expanding their own teacher tool belt. From the data in our survey, we see that 7 out of 15 people specifically mentioned learning from their peers. One of those is a current senior, and the other 6 are recent graduates. So from that data, we can conclude that the perceived impact of learning from your peers increases over time as you gain more time to reflect back on that. Another great part about our program here is the flexibility. So we have a timeline that's showing back from 2015 all the way to the present, kind of how things have changed in relative to the amount of teachers that were in the program, and also kind of what the teachers were looking for. So last year, there was 11 teachers in the program, which was significantly larger than a lot of the other classes, and we had, well, we were part of that class, so I say we had a lot of people who wanted to be part of like pre-K, like teaching pre-K, and also modern band. That was a big interest. So we brought that up to Julie Carr, and she was able to make that happen. We had both pre-K and modern band opportunities. The pre-K program has been able to progress to this current year. And but you can see like the year prior, there were only 3 teachers, so they didn't have the same amount of opportunities just because they had to teach all of the other students, their violins, violas, and cellos. These 2 quotes show this difference here, so that we have from one teacher who only had 3 in their class, they didn't have as much experience doing the group work because they just really had to teach a lot of students, while someone with 8 in their program did have a much more positive experience with creating group lessons plans simply because they had the resources to do so. Our final question that we asked was, what was the best thing about junior student teaching? So we saw a trend here, which was that collaboration and feedback were mentioned the most often. So as we said before, collaboration was available as doing group lesson plans, but also collaboration between the teacher and the student, as well as Julie Carr and all of us giving feedback. And the feedback we were able to receive was from Julie Carr herself, as well as from our peers and those car rides we talked about, and the grad students that would observe our lessons. This quote really sums it up well, I think. So I'll just read this. For me, the strength of the JST program did not come from working on a group lesson plan. The strength of it was that it was a full year, that we were all together in the same co-op, in the same school, that we had a long car ride and many classes together, that we shared 2 amazing teachers, and that for the most part, we all got along really well. I formed a strong bond with the other teachers in my class, and it was because of this bond that we were able to collaborate so well with each other.
Alright, so I'm going to be talking about some implications from this study. So some things that we learned, I'm just going to, summarize some things that my colleagues talked about. So again, that depth versus breadth thing we were talking about. A lot of survey participants said they missed out on, creating their own curriculum or their own methods of teaching. But, this junior student teaching practicum is teaching us depth. We're already using a pre-created model that's already been successful with many students, so then we can focus on how to teach and how to create positive student-teacher relationships. Also, we theorized that there was increased self-efficacy in terms of time management, lesson planning, secondaries, and as well as comfort in identifying technical playing errors, and overall it kind of boosted us and our confidence going into senior student teaching. In addition, there was an increased perception of benefits the longer you were out of the program. Let's see. So how can we use some of this information? We can use it to evaluate the methods in which we train pre-service teachers at the collegiate level in the classroom as well as in the field. And I think this research study really illustrates the benefits of an additional year of student teaching. In terms of further research, we'd love to compare our research to a potential survey to string music educators who did not go through the junior student teaching program or similar program of some sort, and compare it to the answers that we got from our survey. All right, thank you all so much. Not sure if we have time for
We do.
time for
We do.
questions.
So we would love to